The Watchtower's secrets are being dragged into court. Well, let's take a look at this. Hey everyone, it's Vern here. Welcome back to Fixing My Faith. And today we're digging into a disturbing but an important story that just hit the headlines. The Guardian has reported on a lawsuit filed against a Jehovah's Witness administrator. And what it reveals is part of a much bigger, much darker pattern. Let's take a look at this in a second. What we're going to do is we're going to break this down into a few segments and then we're going to cover the article. Now, the case overview, this lawsuit was filed in New Orleans and it focuses on how Jehovah's Witnesses handled a man accused of sexually abusing a 10-year-old girl. Now, instead of permanently removing him, Watchtower reappointed him as an elder just a few years later, even after a conviction. Now let that sink in. A man was convicted of sexually abusing a child, and the organization that claims to protect its flock gave him a position of spiritual authority. Does that make sense? Well, the next cover-up, policies that enable cover-ups. Now this isn't just about one case. This is about a systemic issue within the JW organization. Internal documents show a long-standing two-witness rule, which often results in abuse allegations being dismissed unless there's a second eyewitness, something nearly impossible in most abuse cases. And why this lawsuit matters? This New Orleans case would become a turning point. It's a shining light on the Watchtower's internal secrets. The same ones they've been trying to keep buried through non-disclosure agreements, disfellowshipping victims, and hiding their abuser lists. These aren't just allegations anymore, folks. These are facts supported by the legal filings and survivors' testimonies. So there's a call to action. If you've been harmed by this system, by the JW organization, or if you're still waking up to it, know that you're not alone. There are thousands of us who see what's going on, and we're speaking out. So stick around because I'm going to read the full Guardian article at the end so you can see the receipts for yourself. Now, thanks for being here. Please like and share, subscribe, help this message to reach more people. This is Fixing My Faith. We speak the truth, even when it's hard. And now let's take a look at that article together. Okay, so here's the article. You notice here it's Monday 21st, April 25th. That's today. That's how new this article is. Just released. So I want to thank these guys, Watchtower. Now, Watchtower, they do all the hard work in the background. Not a lot of people know about them. And they dig all of this stuff up. I've never met them, never seen them. I don't know if it's a he or a she or a group of people. But Watchtower, they do a lot of work. So thank you very much, Watchtower. And now let's get into the Guardian. So the article here in the New Orleans news is Jehovah's Witnesses administrator confessed child abuse without substantial consequences. That's what the lawsuit says. Barry Davis says Joseph Fitzgerald Hall molested him back in the 90s. Yet Hall kept working for the church, or the Watchtower, nearly unimpeded. It's funny how most news articles call it a church, but you and I know that this is not a church. A church is a congregation of people who worship God. So this is really a cult because it's a congregation of people that worship the governing body. They worship JW.org. Whatever's written on JW.org will stand in a JW's mind over what a clear scripture in the Bible says. And that's the hard part of waking up. I know for me, I had to admit that it was a cult. I was in a cult. I was worshiping men. I was worshiping the Watchtower. I was putting the Watchtower over the Bible. That's not a church. So anyways, this is the fella, March 27th, just last month. He was in a deposition. This is a photograph that was provided. Now, a U.S. man serving in various administrative roles for Jehovah's Witnesses sexually molested a child whom he met while working for the Christian religious sect in New Orleans. At least they're calling him a sect here. That's the next thing to a cult, right? And then continued his career virtually unimpeded and moved to North Carolina. After completing a disciplinary suspension of less than a year, he has admitted in writing and is in a sworn deposition. And the stunning revelations about Joseph Fitzgerald Hall and how he has been managed by the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society of New York that runs the Jehovah's Witnesses are contained in a lawsuit that the abuse survivor has been pursuing against both the group and the administrator. Interesting how they put that in the article. So I want to go back to this word, unimpeded, no restrictions. He moves to another city, and he has no restrictions, unimpeded. Now, in a recent interview, the survivor, Barry Davis, explained that one of his main reasons for coming forward was to ensure the congregation that Hall later joined in Charlotte, North Carolina, knew the full truth about him. Hall, while testifying under oath in the course of the lawsuit, acknowledged that there is no requirement to tell someone why you were disfellowshipped. I'm going to highlight that, and that's the fact. If you've ever been disfellowshipped, I was, when I first came in the organization back in the 80s. I was disfellowshipped for the normal cause, and then I got married. But anyways, I did 30 years in this organization. 30 years. And throughout the years, I was disfellowshipped and I moved. Now, when you move, they know you were disfellowshipped, but they don't know why. And they're not allowed to ask you. Now, that's a loophole for a pedophile. Now, there's no requirement to tell someone why you're disfellowshipped. And it should not be in the records. It should not be in the letter that they send to the other congregation. It just means that you were disfellowshipped, you were repentant, you got back and reinstated. In my case, I was reinstated in 6 months. I was very repentant. I even went to the Kingdom Hall when they announced my name. The elders said, that'll give you some points. When they were sitting down with me and told me I was going to get disfellowshipped, he said, well, come to the meeting on Tuesday and that'll give you some points. And I did. And I got reinstated in 6 months. That was back in the 80s. I was brand new into the organization, brand new, baptized. It was like a year later I got disfellowshipped. And there's a whole story there. If you guys want to hear it one day, just put it in the comments. But anyways, this guy, the guy that was abused, he knew the truth about Hall. So he brought this forward. He said they should know out there that Davis said this needs to be exposed. It needs to be exposed. So Davis, he's now 46, and also he shed his anonymity to support others. For years have been speaking out about child abuse within the Jehovah's Witnesses. And he contended that the evidence in his case just kind of drives the nail in about the reality of the issue. In his opinion, he said nothing has changed, folks. 2025, nothing has changed. So here we see some pictures blanked out. Barry Davis, he's the far right. He stands with Joseph Fitzgerald Hall when Davis was about 15, and the faces of the other people in the photo are intentionally blurred. The photograph is courtesy of Barry Davis. So there's Barry Davis. He's the guy, the victim. And this is the elder, Hall, who was convicted. About 8.5 million people globally are active members of the denomination. At least that's what they tell us. I actually don't believe it because they're not a transparent organization. I heard one report that they're down to 6.5 million, but I can't back it, so I haven't ran that one. But anyways, this is another church that was saying it, but that's all we found. Anyways, about 8.5 million people globally are active members of the denomination, a primary tenet of which is that of the world's destruction is imminent. So the world's coming to an end. That's what Jehovah's Witnesses believe. That's what they're trying to say in this article. Hall, who's now 60, he did not respond to the request. This is the perpetrator, Hall, eh? And he did not respond to the requests for the comment about his admissions. In a statement, an attorney representing the Watchtower Society. Wow, so the Watchtower's right in there for this guy. Billy Gibbons maintained that the actions of the accused in this lawsuit were his own and contrary to the beliefs and practices of Jehovah's Witnesses. So they want to make sure, they want to take the pressure off the organization, although they reappointed him. They reappointed him. So they have a problem, an internal problem, a huge one. Now, the alleged criminal acts occurred outside the scope of any religious activities assigned to the accused by the local congregation, Gibbons' statement said. And Gibbons said that his side could not elaborate while the case was pending in court, but he also wrote it is deeply distressing whenever anyone falls victim to such a heinous crime and sin. My client deeply empathizes with all of the victims of abuse. And he tells it David was about 9 when he met Hall, roughly age 24, through a Jehovah's Witness congregation in New Orleans, Central City neighborhood. And Hall promised David that he would mold him into one of the so-called Diarrhea congregation's next great leaders if the boy listened properly, according to the plaintiff's lawsuit. But instead, the lawsuit argued Hall exploited his position as a ministerial servant and later as an elder within the congregation to get close to Davis. Hall held private Bible studies with Davis, brought him along as he proselytized to potential new converts, and shared religious articles from the Watchtower Society with him. So you see, that's what it allows pedophiles to do. They move to another congregation. They don't know they're a pedophile. But this is how he got Davis in the first place, and as a pedophile. So going out in the service, going door to door, spending lots of time, it'd look good. It's just another guy, right? So the lawsuit said Hall ultimately took advantage of that proximity to rape Davis and inflict other sexually abusive acts on him from 1990 to 1996, beginning when the boy was 11. Wow. So Hall would tell Davis that 12 was the age of accountability, and therefore the boy bore fault for his molestation, the lawsuit said. So here the Hall tried to put it on the victim, make him the guilty one. Davis recalled disclosing his abuser to his mother, who was a single parent, along with another elder at their congregation by 1998. So this was all reported to the elders. And in February of that year, the elder initiated a type of disciplinary hearing that the Jehovah's Witnesses referred to as Judicial Committee. And multiple congregation, so this is Davis, right, the young boy, picture of him. And multiple congregation elders who form part of the committee, 3, that's what they use, heard Davis deliver an account of the molestation he endured at the hands of Hall. And the committee subsequently disfellowshipped Hall for 11 months, during which time he was in effect suspended from the congregation before he was allowed to return, the lawsuit said. That was back in 98. Now, meanwhile, the lawsuit added the committee instructed Davis to repent and quit his homosexual lifestyle. So the committee made this young boy guilty, called him a homosexual, and said he had to repent. That's what they do. Wow. So the group prohibited Davis from carrying the microphone at the congregation gatherings, working behind the literature counter, or leading trips to proselytize, or, go out in service. He lost all his privileges. Imagine that. And he was the victim. And that's what they do. They punish the victims. And crucially, the lawsuit said it ordered Davis to cooperate with the Jehovah's Witnesses in keeping what Hall had done to him secret. Wow. So these elders told him to keep it all secret because it would impugn the sect if word got out. So it would make Jehovah's Witnesses look bad. Here's what they say. They said, this will come down on Jehovah's name. You will bring reproach to Jehovah's name if you talk about this. This is how they talk in these elders meetings. Imagine that. That's the kind of guilt they put on victims, folks. So the lawsuit asserted such an instruction violated laws in Louisiana, which required religious organizations such as Jehovah's Witnesses to report any suspected child abuse to the state authorities. So they didn't even bother reporting it, folks. They hid it. So Davis said he complied. So Davis complied with this judicial meeting, this committee's wishes, for years, even after he was kicked out of standing in a friend's wedding, when news of him having tried to hold Hall accountable, it circulated among all the congregations. So they didn't like this. They didn't like that this elder was exposed. But Davis, he said he eventually left the Jehovah's Witnesses. He moved to the Dallas area in Texas, and that was in 2014, about 6 years after his mother died. He decided to revisit Hall's abuse and the resulting treatment he got from the Jehovah's Witnesses after seeing a local news story about an attorney filing a lawsuit against the sect on behalf of 5 clients with their own abuse allegations. So Davis said if he reached out to that lawyer who could not assist him because his case unfolded in Louisiana rather than in Texas. Then in 2019, he contacted New Orleans-based attorney Christy Schubert, who has represented a number of religious abusers. We'll look at her. This is her right here. That was also Watchtower put that in. And she advocates for the rights of sexual abuse and exploitation. So she represents a number of religious abusers, but initially she couldn't help because Louisiana laws in effect at the time meant Davis had only until his 28th birthday to sue over his molestation. So Davis was about 40 at the time. Nonetheless, in 2021, Louisiana's legislature enacted a law that in part temporarily allowed child molestation victims to file lawsuits seeking damages, no matter how long they waited. So the laws constitutionally was challenged, but Louisiana's Supreme Court upheld it as a constitutional on the 12th of June, 2024. So there's a recent picture of Barry Davis, just recently. And that very same day, Schubert filed a lawsuit in New Orleans Civil District Courthouse. So this lady here, she filed the lawsuit for him. And in his behalf. And it demanded damages from Hall and the Watchtower Society, including for mental and physical trauma with which the plaintiff was left. Now, the lawsuit has generated exceptionally compelling evidence against Hall, who, as of a deposition in March, he said he was representing himself without an attorney. And in his mandatory response to the lawsuit, Hall wrote that he is guilty of have sick and appropriate relationship with Davis. We fondled each other and played with each other's sex organs and laid out on each other's buttocks, said Hall's response, which was replete with typos. He added that he and Davis engaged in oral sex through the plaintiff at the time, could not legally give consent to that act or any of the others Hall mentioned. And furthermore, Hall wrote that a book which Davis authored and self-published about the abuse speaks truthfully to a large degree about the encounters. And Schubert interrogated Hall under oath during a 27th of March video conference deposition. Hall invoked his constitutional right against self-incrimination, known as pleading the Fifth Amendment, at least 48 times. But he did answer when Schubert asked him if the letter was true and whether he wrote it of his own free accord. And Hall's answer to both questions were yes. Hall additionally testified about how he had a wife as well as a son, and how since 2003 he had belonged to the Jehovah's Witness congregation on Monroe Road in Charlotte. And he said he was considered what is known as a regular publisher. So he'd go door to door, by which he was regularly participating in organized preaching in the congregation. And despite his being disfellowshipped after Davis reported his molestation, Hall said he does not know of any rule prohibiting him from proselytizing around children. I have that highlighted there, folks. So here, this is recent. This is like March. He doesn't know of any rule prohibiting him from proselytizing around children. You see, this is where the Jehovah's Witness organization has failed. It's just failed. And folks, if you're a Jehovah's Witness, you could be in amongst a congregation with active pedophiles, criminals. You wouldn't even know it. They could be elders in your congregation. So let's carry on. He also said there was no mandate for him to disclose the reason for his disfellowshipping to anyone. He didn't have to tell anybody, including fellow members of the congregation. He could keep it secret. All you have to do is move from one city to another, and you're free if you're a Jehovah's Witness. Now, speaking in the weeks after the deposition, Davis said Hall's statements evidently contradict the Jehovah's Witness claim in their policies that children are a sacred trust and their protection is of utmost concern and importance. Of course. They don't give a shit. They don't give a rat's behind about the children. They make the children and the victims guilty, just like they did in this article with Davis. So Davis said he hopes Hall and the Jehovah's Witness make him whole for his ordeal. But furthermore, he said he hopes that the Jehovah's Witness rethink the way they have let Hall carry on his business within the denomination. It's upsetting, it's infuriating, Davis said. I just think that is ludicrous. Now, in the U.S., call or text Child Help if you guys have any problems. And that's in this article. If you have any problems, or visit their website for more resources, or you can even do direct message, text message. So it gives a UK support line right there. Adults concerned about a child right there, call that one. And the National Association for People Abused in Childhood offers support. Just call this number. And in Australia, children, young adults, parents, teachers can contact the Kids Helpline, right here, Australia. Or Bravehearts, right here. And adult survivors can contact Blue Knot Foundation, right here. Other sources of help can be found at Child Helplines International. So you can pause this page, write down the number that's going to work for you, and make the call. It's important that we make the call. So that's the end of the article, folks. I think we covered it all off. Thanks again to Watchtower for getting this information out to us. But I think this is going to make a big change. I think cases like this is starting to really get the Department of Justice looking at this. And that's who we need in the U.S. is the Department of Justice doing a whole U.S. sweep of this organization. And it's cases like this that expose what's happening modern day. This is pretty current stuff. Some of this stuff that's going on. This guy's out in the preaching work. They talked to him in March, and he's out in the preaching work. He didn't know that there was restrictions, and he can move to another city. He doesn't have to tell anybody that why he was disfellowshipped. Lots of people are disfellowshipped, get reinstated. A few years goes by, and they're working the literature counter. Next thing you know, they start with the mics, then they get them on the literature counter, and then they get them doing announcements at the Kingdom Hall. They go up on the stage. And then long as their behavior is good, and they look at their service time. That's really the gauge. There's no therapy, nothing else. It's how much time you're putting into the Watchtower. And that's the gauge. If he's a loving guy, look at that loving brother. He puts 70 hours a month into the Watchtower. He's a loving brother. And maybe he's putting 70 hours a month. He's a pioneer out there, and he has these kids with him. He's a pedophile. You see, they have no way of knowing. That's how their rules work. So, folks, this is great. Keep exposing the Watchtower. We have to do this. We've been in it. So the more we expose it, the more we help others. And a way that you can expose it is watch these videos right through. I didn't say this at the beginning, but watch our videos right through. It helps our algorithms, so YouTube will push the video further. A lot of people just watch 10 minutes here, 15 minutes there. That's what our algorithm shows. But if you can watch the videos right through, YouTube will push these videos further. You don't have to do any work. If it gets boring, go get a coffee. Just let it play through. This one's only 26 minutes. So that's all you have to do, folks. And you can help these videos go. If you know where you can share it, like it, and put a comment in. YouTube loves that. It pushes the videos further. That's where we're at YouTube's mercy here. So thanks again, folks. We'll keep knocking one brick at a time out of the Watchtower. And we do it by these videos. Thanks again. Keep living your life with love that always works. And have a great day. Bye for now.